So we're 2 weeks away from the start of the season, 3 weeks away from the end of the transfer window. I'm just going to give my tier list as I see the window going at the moment. I know there's plenty of room for change, but I've based this off of me being an advocate of getting the business done early. I feel like that's very important, especially in the summer transfer window, because you need the time for your players to bed in, to get used to the way you want to play before the season starts. You don't want them to be learning your system on the job in the start of the season. Clearly, in the January transfer window, that's not an option. They have to learn on the job, whatever. But the summer one, I think you should get your business done early, because also the price goes up 10-15% by the end of the window, because everyone knows you're desperate for that player, so they can put an extra bit of money on top of it. So I'm going to base this off of who's done the best business so far, and then I'll probably revisit this at the end of the transfer window to see if anyone changed, if anyone moved up or down in the tier list. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to go in alphabetical order because that just makes sense. Arsenal. I've put Arsenal in decent. The reason why they're indecent, because at the moment they still haven't announced the signing of Bruno Guimaraes yet. I'm pretty sure he's going to get over the line as long as he passes medical and stuff, but as it stands at the minute, they've not really improved their squad from last year. They've only signed a couple of players. One they already had on loan last season, so they haven't really improved their squad. They've lost a couple of players, but again, they haven't really moved anywhere. So like their squad was already obviously the best in the league. 'Cause they won the league, so they didn't have many areas that they needed to improve on. But they do need to improve in some areas. For example, Saliba's injured, so a centre back probably would have been a good place to start. Someone who's going to consistently, reliably score you goals, because Gyökeres is a good player, but he's not going to score you all the goals that you need to score. So yeah, at the minute I've put them in decent. Aston Villa, I've put them into needs work because they've lost some big players. They've lost some of their most important players. Yuri Tillemans is a massive loss for Aston Villa and a massive steal for Man United for the amount he went for. He is a very good player, and I think he goes a bit underrated for the work he actually does, and he can score you a goal from 35 yards out. His passing is good. He breaks up the play. He's just all round a really good player, and I think they're really going to miss that in the midfield. And then Morgan Rogers obviously going. Now Morgan Rogers has probably gone for PSR SCR rules, but nonetheless, they've still lost one of their best players, if not their best potential player that they had, to Chelsea. And they've not improved. What they've done is they've lost their best players and replaced them with players that are slightly worse, still decent, like João Gomez for Wolves. He was brilliant last season for Wolves in a really bad Wolves team. He's a good player, but he's not Yuri Tillemans. And then Garnacho, for me, it's a mistake for Aston Villa. They should have learnt their lesson with Jadon Sancho last season. He had a couple of halves of good games of football here and there, but they keep signing these unwanted wingers. Rashford a couple of seasons ago, even though Rashford did alright for Villa, then they get Sancho. Now they've got Garnacho. These players are not what Aston Villa need. They need someone who's going to be reliable, who's going to muck in, who's going to dig in when they need to defend, get up when they need to get up, and not like a luxury player out on the winger. And I think that's a mistake. So therein needs work. Next, Bournemouth. Okay, Bournemouth, I've put them in decent. They've got rid of a couple of players, but they've also brought in a couple of players. So they've probably just balanced out where they are. They got into Europe, which means their squad strength was pretty decent as it stood already. And with Bournemouth, again, they're one of the good teams in the league at picking up players that you don't necessarily think are going to do that well, and then they somehow do really well, and they consistently do it. So I don't think it's luck anymore. So they're indecent. Brentford, I've got them in the same boat because they're very similar to Bournemouth, and the next team will be Brighton. They've got rid of a couple of players, but they've also got a couple of players in that will strengthen their squad, and they've got some. Callum Wilson's a good one. He'll get you a couple of goals when you need them. Jaden Anthony from Burnley wasn't a bad player for Burnley. He was just in a poor Burnley team, so maybe inside the Brentford team, he might be able to improve himself and get some goals, get some assists, and really help the team out. So I think decent is them as well. They've not lost any massive players, but they've strengthened in the places where they need the strengthening. And then, like I just said there, Brighton, they're indecent as well. They've lost a couple of players, brought a couple of players in with good Premier League experience. Yeah, they've lost Danny Welbeck, but Brighton are another one of them teams that are very good at replacing players with players that you don't really know much about and never really seen, but they've done their homework and they believe in the players and their system that they sign, so they're indecent as well. Chelsea, elite. Yeah, they've smashed it this transfer window, I think. Morgan Rogers, Lacroix, Danny Welbeck for a bit of experience, Jordan Henderson again for a bit of experience. The player that everyone's going to hate, Valentino Barco. Don't really know much about him, but Chelsea have really dug deep in this one, I think, and tried to strengthen out their squad in a way that just doesn't sign 20-year-olds. Get a bit of experience on the pitch, a bit of experience around the pitch as well, not just in specific areas. They've got some at the back, some in midfield, some up top. So they've got some experience there now. So maybe that will lead them to where they want to go. They got rid of a couple of players as well that didn't help them. Garnacho's gone. Tyreek George was already out last season to Everton anyway, so he's just gone to where he was before. And Cucurella's gone to Real Madrid. They've already got replacements in them sort of places in their own squad anyway, so I don't think they've lost out too much. So, yeah, Chelsea are in elite. Next, we go to Coventry. Okay, I've got Coventry into needs work, just because they've signed a couple of players, a couple with a bit of Premier League experience, but I think they need to do more. They've only got 4 players in. Now, the way a lot of the teams, when they get promoted, stay up is by really pushing the boat out and getting some really either top experienced players or lots and lots of semi-experienced Premier League players and ones with good talent from other countries. Like Sunderland did it last season. I would say, out of all of the players that they've got, signing Granit Xhaka was the reason why they stayed up last season, because he held the whole team together. Obviously, he didn't score week in, week out, but what he did for that team brought them stability, probably calmed them down in the dressing room when they were winning games, probably got them up when they were losing games. That's the experience that you need to buy, and at the minute, Coventry haven't done that yet. So maybe they are going to do that, but they haven't done that so far. Next, Crystal Palace. Okay, Crystal Palace have had a poor transfer window. I've got them in poor here. They've only signed one player, Oscar Minguez from Celta Vigo, and they've lost their main centre-back. Now, Crystal Palace were already struggling last season anyway. They wasn't really near the drop. They sort of dipped around there towards the end of the season, but it was never really on the cards for them to be relegated last season. But there's not that many teams in the league that are worse than them this season. Obviously, the 3 promoted teams will probably be worse than them. But all it takes is for one of them to have a good season, and I think they're in trouble. They've lost their manager, got a new manager in. So we'll see how that goes. But I'll put them in poor. Everton needs work. Okay, they've signed a couple of players. They already had Tyreek George last season. Hayden Hackney seems like a good transfer as well. And they've just signed Christian Norgard in from Arsenal. But they need to do a lot more in the transfer window if they want to improve their season from last season. They were just a mid-table average team last season. If they ever want to be any better than that, they really need to start investing in their squad. And I know I said the other day that's not really a them sort of thing to do, but they are going to need to do that. Okay, moving on to Fulham. I've got Fulham in needs work as well. They have just signed a couple of players from Real Madrid, but they have lost their most important players. Harry Wilson was very good for them last season. Raul Jimenez, brilliant striker. Issa Diop, really good in centre back. They've lost the spine of their team essentially, or maybe not the spine of Harry Wilson, but they've lost 3 key components to their first 11 squad week in, week out, unless there's an injury. So replacing them with these 2 guys from Real Madrid and a guy from Bayern Munich sound good, but I don't really know how much they're going to be replacements for them 3 players. So they do need some work. I think Fulham are a solid mid-table club, but with a couple of additions can sneak into that Europe place. But they just have to be smart with their money. They've got Arbeloa as manager now, so maybe they might have a couple of years in transition. But I think they definitely need to do some work if they want to push to the next level. Next, Hull. Hull, I've got them in decent. They've done what a lot of the newly promoted teams try to do. Get a good couple of players in with experience from the Premier League. Matt Targett, Jack Butland, and then get some players in from outside of the Premier League just to add a little bit a little spice, if you will. Morita, to add a bit of spice, and that might be the difference of what keeps you up, what doesn't keep you up. I think they still need to sign a couple more players, but so does everyone. So there's no need to keep saying that. But Hull, they've done a decent job so far. A couple of additions, and they're going to give themselves the best chance they've got to stay in the Premier League. Next, Ipswich. Okay, again, they're in decent. They've again done what most of the newly promoted sides try to do. Get some players in with some Premier League experience that can just be solid, and they're not like nervous that they've just got into the Premier League. They're like, right, I've been here before, I know what to do. They set the example, they set the tone, and try and bring the other players back, like up to the level what they know that they should be at. And that's what Ipswich have done. A couple more players, they might end up staying up. You never know. Leeds needs work. They did struggle last season. They were near the bottom until the last handful of games, and then went on a little winning run and got themselves out of it comfortably by the end. But there was periods where they were really struggling, and they've got rid of some important players as well. However, they have got in James Trafford from Man City, who's a solid goalkeeper, and Harry Wilson, who's a really good winger. So they are going in the right direction with replacing players that they've got rid of and trying to take that next step up, maybe to get top 10, maybe, if they can. But they still need a bit of work because they're not that much better than they was last season. Okay, Liverpool, I've put them in poor, and I think it's an easy decision, this one. This is one of the easiest decisions that I've made so far. Is they've lost a handful of week in, week out, top level, like first on the team sheet players, starting 11. Mo Salah's left, Andy Robertson's left, Konate's left. Like, I know Konate's a bit wobbly here and there, but he's still a solid centre back, and they haven't really replaced any of them yet. And they've signed 3 players, any of which are of note. And I don't know what their plan is. They've been linked with 1 or 2 decent players, but nothing seems to have come of it. I don't know if they're waiting until the end to strike, but I don't know if that's the right thing to do in their situation. They didn't have a very good season last season. If they don't improve, get some more important players in, some big players, they could find themselves out of Champions League next season, and that's a real possibility because there is teams pushing up there now that weren't very good last season that are going to be pushing for them places, like Chelsea, like Tottenham. They're going to be wanting to get back up there, and if Liverpool drop out of it, it's not going to be a good time for them. So they need to do a lot of work. Next, Man City. I've got them in needs work, which sounds mad because they spent 115 million on Elliot Anderson, but that's pretty much all they've done. They've got a couple of other players in here or there, one from Leicester, one from Sheffield Wednesday, but everything else is going out. Trafford's gone out, Bernardo Silva's gone, Ake's gone, Stones is gone. They've got rid of, again, some like really top level quality players, number ones on the team, like starting 11 / definitely bench players who can come on and do a really good job for you, and will get into the majority of the other Premier League teams. I think they really need to improve. Seems as though they didn't win the league last season either, so they wasn't the strongest team in the league, so they need to improve, and they've got a lot of work to do if they want to catch Arsenal, especially with Arsenal potentially signing Bruno Guimaraes. There's they might be getting left behind a little bit here. So unless they pull their finger out a little bit, I've got them in needs work. Same as Man United. Again, they did an early bit of business with Yuri Tielemans, which I was like, okay, sound like they're going to be looking to push themselves up the table this season. They did well towards the back end of last season. They want to continue to push on. Signed Andre Santos from Chelsea, who was in and out of the team. Everyone else is left. I mean, Casemiro's gone, Højlund's gone. They haven't really weakened their team. Like Casemiro started every week, obviously, but they have Yuri Tielemans can fill that spot. But they haven't really weakened their team. But they needed work from last season. That's why they're still in needs work now, not in decent, because they needed additional players last season. So now they still need them additional players because they've just like almost replaced what they've already just got rid of. So they need a bit of work doing. Next, Newcastle. I've got them in poor. They've had a shocker of a summer, to be honest with you. And I've put them in poor for the reason that they've got rid of their best players. And I know I haven't put Arsenal in elite because Bruno Guimaraes hasn't gone yet. But Newcastle are still in poor because they've got rid of Tonali and Anthony Gordon, who were some of their best players last season. And they've replaced them with a lot of hopes and prayers, it looks like. A couple of decent players, but nothing that stands out where you're like, okay, yeah, sound. He's a 1-for-1, or he potentially is going to be a 1-for-1. They got a lot of money for Tonali, got a lot of money for Gordon, so they've got quite a bit of money in the bank, you would think. If they spend it wisely, they can move themselves up to decent, but at the minute, I think they're in poor. And also, another reason why I think they're in poor is because I don't know how much Eddie Howe had sway on who was brought in, but the managers only just signed like 1 or 2 days ago. So all the players they've brought in so far can't have been that manager's picks. So they're almost starting from a scratch, and they've just sold all their best players. They're in trouble this season. If they don't make some big signings towards the end of the season, some important signings, I think they're really in trouble. They've got to hope that a couple of other teams are worse than them. And one of them teams is Nottingham Forest. I've put them in poor as well. They've lost Elliot Anderson, their best player Morgan Gibbs White's their best player by far, but they're one of their most influential players up and down all around the pitch. Elliot Anderson was really up there. He got them out of trouble a lot of times. That's a massive hit for a team like Nottingham Forest, and they didn't have much to play with anyway. They were very close to getting relegated again. I think 2 massive wins for them last season, one against West Ham, one against Tottenham, is what kept them up. They beat the teams around them, which the other teams weren't really doing, and that's why they survived. They can't be losing their one of their best players and not replacing him, and more, because you don't want to just finish like 16th again. Do you know what I mean? Like they need to really improve. Next, Sunderland. I've got them in needs work. They had a good season last season, but if you remember towards the end of the season, like the second half towards the end, they sort of fell off a little bit. I think people worked out how they were playing, started playing against them differently, and then they started to lose some games, and they got slapped up a few games as well. I'm not saying that's going to happen this season, but to mitigate that, they need to bring quite a few players in, and they've only brought Thomas Mooney in so far, which isn't a bad sign at all. I'm not saying that, but they need to really get a couple of like 2 or 3 more players to get them just into like the decent level where they're like, okay, sound, we can work from here. And finally, Tottenham. I've got Tottenham in elite. Like, you can't argue that Tottenham haven't had a good transfer window, if not the best in the Premier League. I would definitely say so, that they've had the best transfer window so far. Tonali, Fernandes, Van Hecke, Andy Robertson, Senesi, Dubravka as a backup goalie. Like, they've really strengthened the core of their team. If you look at them players, apart from Robertson, they're all centre of the park players, whether it be centre back, centre midfield. They've all really, like, that's to strengthen the spine of their team, which is something they really lacked last season. And then you've got Andy Robertson, won almost everything, done really well. That experience at the back to try and get them across the line, because they, a lot of the time, sort of lose their heads a little bit and then lose the game. Like, they go 1-0 down and then they start to pile in. So yeah, that's my transfer window tier list so far. Again, we've got 3 weeks left until the end of the transfer window. Once the transfer window's finished, I'll revisit this and go back over where I had everyone, and then where they end up if they've changed. Some might come down, some of them might push themselves up a little bit, but we'll have a look. Thank you for watching, much appreciated, and I'll see you in a bit.